Hey folks, bit of an update here on our 4th generation wood cook stove, hot water, baking, drying, do it all system. We've been working with these systems now for, wood heat systems for about 25 years and the wood cook stove do it all type of system for about 15. And this is the latest version, 4th one that I've done. I'm about 2 weeks into it, and it's for sure the best one so far. It's working even better than Generation 3.0, which was with an SE Ironheart. This one is with a new stove, actually. So all the others were with used stoves that I bought. This one's with a brand new wood cook stove by J.A. Roby called the Marmaden. And I got a bunch of clients together and we bought about $40,000 worth of stoves from this company. So I got a pretty good deal on it. And it's working really, really well. It's definitely the highest efficiency stove, that a cook stove that I've used. It's as high efficiency as the Morzo 2B, which I used once to heat a greenhouse before I realized that heating a greenhouse in this climate wasn't a good idea. And but it's a cook stove, so it has this entire cook surface, plus it has a phenomenal oven, and the oven works better than the other ovens that I've used, although the Stanley oven is very good. It gets really hot. And the water system, which I retrofitted in the last bunch of weeks right here, hot coming off this side, cold going in here. I still have some tweaks to make. I was short 145 degree fitting, so I'd like to have this go closer to the back so it's lower profile and tuck it in there instead of coming out a little. But I also like the way this looks. I just want it more, the more out of the way this is, the better. I have been welding stainless recently, but when I first spec'd the ordering of supplies for this, I wasn't welding stainless and I wasn't feeling confident about it. I could have just welded these fittings. Instead, I bought 42-inch stainless pipes, so they come out about 4 more inches than would be ideal. But again, I kind of like the look. Gives me another place to hang stuff too. One thing that I've done with my other wood stove systems, which some of you I'm sure have seen, is add extension wings. So I'll bolt on or weld on some side tables. That's not done yet. That's important. You want a lot of space on both sides of the stove to put tamari and butter and tallow, whatever you're cooking with, salt, pepper. Plus I may weld on or bolt onto the back some more space there for this. But this is a marked improvement from the last versions, really for 2 reasons. One is just the efficiency of the stove, which comes from gas reburning here, which is just common in modern stoves, although not common to cook stoves. And the other is a supplied air intake, and that is just so helpful. So this stove gets all of its air from a different part of the house, which is essentially outside from the basement, which is separate from this space. And so supplied air comes into the stove, burns in the firebox, and there's the exhaust. So none of that air is drawn through this space. So that just saves you a lot of cold air drafting coming through your space to feed the stove. Unless you're in a very high efficiency home, you want that. You want a supplied air source. Now, a lot of stoves don't come with a supplied air source port like this does. I mean, the stove is made to have its own supplied air source. This was a pain in the butt to get through tile, thin set, plywood, drywall to downstairs. I'm not a plumber, by the way, so don't look at my sweated pipe joints too carefully. I should have practiced again. It had been some years before I sweated it all together, but it worked. It worked just fine. And I had to customize a vent system for myself because just 2 90s, bought 90s, would put the stove too far away. I wanted it up against the back. Some of you have seen this before. This is definitely the best drying system. I have another version on our SE where the accordion drying rack comes down from the top on pulleys. That works good, but if you have a stone wall behind your stove or a masonry wall, that's the best for mass too. It's a meaningful amount of mass. Then you can bolt on a system like this, and this can hold a lot of weight. I mean, I'm drying my ski skins here and ski boots, ski liners, bathing suits, whatever. We always have towels. This is always in a state of drying stuff in the winter. And it's just a very effective way to go. I also, modified this stove to vent out the back. That's one disadvantage of the Roby is they only come out the top. I totally moved that. It still works great. The draft is amazing. You want to vent all stoves out the back because you want as much surface area on top for utilizing as possible. So I'm going to get into this and also a bunch of new aspects that I've been learning about in the last bunch of years with the wood heating system, especially in the last year with wood pollution, indoor air pollution, because we had a bunch of smoke this summer. And so I was actually running a air filter, which I've never done in the house, that had a ppm meter for particulates. And I learned a lot about how just a little bit of back puffing of smoke coming out the door when you go to load it or start your fire can cause hours of meaningfully bad air pollution in your space. Like it can raise your main inhabited area in the home 200 to 300 parts per million for hours before that smoke dissipates. That's bad. That's like someone puffing a few cigarettes in your kitchen, or so, maybe a little more in terms of particulate matter. So you really want to avoid that. We're going to talk about that a bit in the next wood heating course I'm doing, which is coming up in about 2 weeks. We're going to get into that and all of the other updates that about these systems and go through really our system, all of our learnings to some extent for the past 20 years with these systems, the past 4 versions of the wood cookstove. So if you haven't taken any of these online wood heat intensive courses with us, you should join us. Actually, there's like 50 people already signed up just from who already took the course, who took it a year ago. And then there's a bunch of other people coming who haven't taken it yet. So hope to see you there. If you haven't dialed in your wood heating system to heat, to cook, to bake, and to ideally to heat all your hot water, you are vulnerable to supply chain increases in prices and disturbances, because unless you're in a very sunny place and that's met with solar, which is really hard to do in the winter in a lot of places, you don't have critical needs being met. Plus, cooking and baking isn't going to happen through solar pretty much. Hot water isn't going to happen in most places either. This right now is putting out 140 degree hot water and on the high side, and it's the cold side, which is thermosiphoning down, is at 130. So we have a 50-gallon tank up in the bedroom. And so on the hot side of that tank, there's 140 degree water. The cold side's 130. That's a lot of showers, dishes, clothes drying, all just as a byproduct of heating our home. And amazing. I mean, it just is such a win. There's a lot of technological improvements out there we can do to our homes. Some don't stand the test of time. This one now, I've been working with the wood hot water heating for 15 years, and it's just a no-brainer. It's so incredible. It does take about a third of your heat, your BTUs is going to go to the hot water, so that has to be dealt with. It does suck some heat out of the stove. You don't want to do that in the firebox, like via a jacket. You also don't want to do it in the exhaust pipe. I know some people do that too. Those cause all sorts of problems that can be dealt with better if we do it with this approach through the top of the stove. But there's a lot to think about. We'll talk about that in the Zoom session December 14th when we do our next online wood heating intensive course. We'll also talk about how it affects baking and your oven heating and a lot of other aspects. So look forward to seeing you guys there.